I always believed family came before business. At least that's what my father used to say while flipping pancakes on the old griddle at Archer Family Diner, the place I grew up in, the place I thought would always be mine. The Arizona sun was brutal that morning, pouring through the diner's windows like molten gold. I stood behind the counter, watching customers sip their coffee. And for a fleeting second, I felt peace. But peace never lasts long in families built on money. My brother, Ethan Archer, walked in with his perfect suit and his perfect smile. The kind that could sell a lie smoother than butter on toast. "Sol," he said, pulling off his sunglasses. "We need to talk. Dad's estate stuff." I wiped my hands on a towel, uneasy. "Now we're in the middle of breakfast rush." He gave that condescending smirk. "This won't take long." In his hand was a folder, thick, expensive paper. I didn't know it yet, but that folder was the beginning of everything falling apart. I took him to the office behind the kitchen, where the smell of coffee and grease lingered like ghosts of every morning I'd worked here since I was 17. He dropped the folder on the desk. "Dad wanted to simplify the trust," he said. "Simplify?" I repeated. "What does that even mean?" "It means," he paused, avoiding my eyes, "you'll have a consulting role, but I'll take over official ownership. Just streamlining things." My stomach went cold. "You changed it." He leaned back, shrugging like it was nothing. "The lawyers agreed. You weren't around when Dad finalized things." "That's not true," I snapped. "I was here, running this place while you were in California playing CEO for startups that tanked." He sighed. "It's just business, Sol. Don't take it personally." Those words burned like acid. Just business. That's what people say when they're stabbing you and want you to thank them for it. Later that night, after the diner closed, I sat alone at table 7, Dad's favorite seat. The neon sign outside flickered, buzzing softly, like it couldn't decide whether to live or die. I pulled the trust papers from the folder again, reading every word until the letters blurred. It was true. My name was there, but only as a consultant. No ownership, no vote, no control. My hands trembled. He hadn't just stolen money, he'd stolen legacy. The years I spent modernizing the diner, the loyalty of the staff who believed in me, every sleepless night trying to keep the business afloat during the pandemic, all erased with a signature. That night, I remembered Dad's last conversation with me before he passed. "You've got the spirit, Sol," he said, coughing into a napkin. "Keep this place alive. Ethan's got the numbers, but you've got the heart. Promise me you'll take care of the people here." I did promise, and now that promise burned like a brand on my skin. The next few weeks were a blur of betrayal wrapped in polite meetings. Ethan called staff meetings to announce structural changes. He brought in outside consultants who talked in buzzwords. Efficiency, rebranding, franchising. They didn't care about the old regulars, the recipes that built the diner's soul, or the cooks who'd been there longer than both of us combined. When I tried to speak up, Ethan smiled in front of everyone and said, "We value Celine's input as an advisor." Advisor, like I was some outsider who didn't bleed for this place. That night, I found the courage to confront him again. "You know this isn't what Dad wanted," I said quietly, standing in the empty parking lot as he locked his car. He didn't look at me. "Dad wanted success. I'm delivering that. You're delivering betrayal." He finally turned, his expression ice cold. "You were too emotional to run this place. I'm saving it from you." The words cut deeper than I expected, because maybe, deep down, he believed them. When I got home, I cried until my throat hurt. Anger mixed with shame, shame with grief, grief with something darker, resolve. If he thought he could erase me, he'd underestimated how much of me lived inside those walls. I opened my laptop and pulled up the diner's accounting records. Every sales chart, modernization report, and customer growth metric I'd built in the last 2 years. Proof that I had turned the diner around. Proof that without me, there was nothing to streamline. As the screen glowed blue in the dark room, an idea began to form. Slow, dangerous, beautiful. Maybe family business isn't about blood after all. Maybe it's about who's willing to fight for it. And if Ethan wanted a war of paperwork, reputation, and loyalty, he'd get one. I whispered to myself, "You took my name off the papers, Ethan, but you forgot one thing. Everyone still knows this diner runs on my recipes." The hum of the refrigerator filled the silence, like a heartbeat counting down to something inevitable. Something big was coming. The next morning, I woke up with the taste of stale coffee and fury in my mouth. I hadn't slept. My mind was a tangled mess of numbers, betrayal, and Dad's voice echoing like a ghost through the empty diner. Ethan thought he'd written me out of the story, but I wasn't done writing. The first step was quiet. Revenge always starts in whispers. I began gathering proof. Invoices, receipts, customer reviews, photos of upgrades I had personally overseen, the remodeled booths, the touchscreen ordering system, the new outdoor patio that doubled weekend traffic. Every piece of data became a brick in the wall I was building, a wall to corner my brother with facts he couldn't twist. I kept my plan secret, but I couldn't hide my mood from everyone. Maria, our head waitress, noticed first. "Sol, you've been quiet lately," she said, sliding a cup of coffee my way. "You okay?" I forced a smile. "Just thinking." She gave me a look that cut through the lie. "About Ethan?" I sighed. "Always." Maria shook her head. "That boy's got no respect for what your daddy built. But I know you, girl. You don't stay quiet for long." I smiled then, a small, dangerous smile. "You're right, I don't." A week later, Ethan launched his new brand vision. He changed the diner's logo, the one Dad designed, into a sleek, soulless emblem that looked like a tech startup. He even changed the slogan from "Serving Home Since 1978" to "Archer Eats, where tradition meets tomorrow." It made me sick. The regulars noticed too. They muttered in disapproval, side-eyeing the new digital menus and corporate slogans plastered across the walls. That was my first opening. If Ethan wanted to turn the diner into a brand, I'd turn it into a movement, one that remembered what the place truly meant. I started a blog called Heart of the Grill. I wrote about the old days, how Dad started with $10 and a grill from a pawn shop, how we served the first meal to a trucker who couldn't afford to pay, and how we always fed him anyway. People began to share the posts. Former employees commented. Customers posted photos from years ago. Birthday parties, first dates, Sunday breakfasts. Within 2 weeks, Heart of the Grill had more engagement than the diner's official page. Ethan tried to downplay it as nostalgia, but the comments told a different story. The people were choosing me, not his corporate version. Still, nostalgia wasn't enough. I needed something official, something that couldn't be dismissed as sentimental noise. I called Harper, an old friend who worked as an independent accountant. She'd helped me with the diner's books during the pandemic. "Sol," she said when she picked up. "Haven't heard from you in a while. How's life under King Ethan?" I exhaled. "Complicated. I need your help." "What kind of help?" "The legal kind." Quietly. She hesitated. "You're not doing something illegal, are you?" "Not yet," I said. "But I plan to do something right." We met 2 nights later at her office. Dim light, closed blinds, and the hum of her computer filling the silence. I handed her a flash drive. Every file since 2020, financial reports, renovation costs, staffing logs, all the proof that I increased profits before Ethan took over. She plugged it in, eyes scanning fast. "Jesus, Sol, these numbers. You boosted net revenue by 30%. That's huge." "Exactly," I said. "And now he's telling everyone I was just an advisor." Harper smirked. "Then let's make it official. You were the backbone." Days turned into nights of data review, document comparisons, and long whispered phone calls. Every discovery made the truth sharper. Ethan had filed several misleading statements with the family trust lawyers, citing mismanagement to justify cutting me out. But his biggest mistake? He left timestamps. Every change he made to the trust occurred after Dad's death. It wasn't just betrayal anymore, it was fraud. I remember the night I realized it fully. I was sitting in my car outside the diner, watching Ethan through the window, laughing with investors, shaking hands like a man who thought he'd already won. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. For the first time since it all began, I felt calm. Not the calm of surrender, but of precision. He'd broken the law, and I had the evidence to prove it. But revenge isn't simple math. It's chemistry. Volatile, dangerous, and unpredictable. Because the moment I started moving against him, Ethan noticed. He started questioning staff, asking who I'd been talking to, checking server access logs, even replacing some employees with his own hires. Maria came to me one night, voice trembling. "He's asking about you, Sol. Says you're spreading lies online." I clenched my jaw. "Let him ask." She looked scared. "He's threatening to fire anyone who talks to you." That hit me harder than I expected. He wasn't just targeting me anymore. He was hurting the people I'd promised to protect. So I changed my strategy. If I fought him head on, he'd drag the whole diner down with him. I needed allies. Quietly, carefully. I began meeting staff one by one. Dishwashers, waitresses, cooks. In parking lots, coffee shops, even at church on Sundays. I told them the truth. I showed them proof. Some were scared, some angry, but most were loyal. Because this wasn't just my fight anymore, it was ours. And then, one night, Harper called me. Her voice was urgent. "Celine, I think I found something you need to see. It's big." "What kind of big?" I asked. "The kind that could bury Ethan if we play it right." I froze. In that moment, the hum of the world went silent, just the beat of my heart echoing like a drum in my chest. "What did you find?" I whispered. She hesitated. "Let's just say Ethan's been funneling diner profits into a private shell company under his name. One registered 3 weeks before your dad passed." My vision blurred. The betrayal had layers, and I was only just peeling back the first one. When Harper said she had something big, she wasn't joking. Her voice over the phone had been clipped. Urgent. The way people talk when they found a missing puzzle piece. We met in a diner booth at midnight. The same diner, but with different faces, different mood. The fluorescent lights hummed. Outside, Phoenix slept. Inside, I felt awake in a way I hadn't since Dad's funeral. Harper slid a manila envelope across the table. "I ordered a records pull," she said. "Corporate filings, bank statements, vendor payments. The shell company Ethan set up. It's not just a shell, it's a pipeline." My stomach dropped. "Where does it go?" "To a holding company he controls, and then to an LLC tied to a condo development project. He's been siphoning money into real estate deals, projects that would have gutted our diner's block for upscale condos." I pictured the diner, our faded sign, the chipped counter, Maria at the register. The image of bulldozers where our patio sat made bile rise in my throat. "So he's planning to sell us out," I said. More statement than question. Harper nodded. "And he's been paying himself bonuses as consulting fees to justify the transfers. It's creative accounting, and it's illegal." That word, illegal, feels sharp and righteous in my mouth. I needed counsel, not just Harper's accounting brain, but someone who could turn facts into legal action. I called Maya Lin, a mediator and family business attorney I'd met years ago at a small business workshop. She had that quiet, precise energy of someone who's seen too many families crack under cash. "Maya," I said when she answered, "I think my brother's committing fraud." There was a pause. "Show me what you have." We met the next morning in the back office. I laid everything on the table, the trust copy, the shell company filings Harper had printed, bank transfers flagged for odd amounts, and whistleblower notes from a vendor who'd been paid unusually large deposits. Maya read, eyes narrowing. "This is messy, Celine, but it's also actionable. We can petition for an emergency accounting, file for an injunction to freeze those transfers, and subpoena Ethan's corporate records." Relief washed through me so strong I almost cried. Action, paperwork, law, things I could quantify and control. Maya cautioned me. "There will be a fight. He'll respond. He has money and good lawyers. But you have 2 things he underestimates: proof and people." People. I'd been building that quietly. Now was the time to knit them tighter. I started with staff. I called a meeting and didn't announce it on a board or Slack. I wanted only the loyal ones there. Maria, Luis, head cook, Cassie, longtime dishwasher, and Ben, night bartender. "You came," Maria said, relief like a physical breath. "I need your help," I said. "Not for drama, for truth." They listened as I explained the findings, the shell company, the condo project, the bonuses. I watched faces shift, anger, disbelief, then the slow hardening of resolve. Luis slammed his fist on the table. "He can't do that to our people. He can't take our jobs and shove condos in their place." "Then we don't let him," Ben said. "If he fires anyone for talking, we walk. We stand together." That pledge, solidarity in low voices, felt like the first real defense wall. People promised to document odd payments, to save texts, to remember dates. We weren't naive, we were prepared. But Ethan anticipated exposure. He ramped up his PR game with frightening speed. Within days, glossy flyers appeared on the diner's door. "New Archer Eats, investment in community future." investors showed up for stage tours. He hired a PR rep who smiled too brightly and handed out talking points about growth and legacy evolution. I knew press. I'd seen good PR mask a terrible product before. So I turned to the community. I invited loyal customers to a town hall dinner, a free night for anyone who'd supported the diner for 5 years or more. I cooked what I could: pies, chili, the old cornbread Dad loved. I spoke, not in legalese, but in stories. How Dad fed people who had nothing, how the staff found families in these booths, how certain plans would erase lives. The room listened. Tears leaked from more than one corner. A woman named Leah, who'd been married here 30 years ago, stood and said, "They can't take this from us. This place is where my kids learn to say please and thank you." Her voice lit something. Phones came out. People filmed. A viral ember began. Harper and Maya watched the feed from the back. Smiles small but fierce. Ethan hit back hard. He posted a legal notice on the diner's window. A thinly veiled threat of litigation for disruption of business operations. He called the press, spinning a narrative about a rogue employee sabotaging growth. And then he went even lower. A trusted vendor, one who supplied our produce for years, called Maria to say his contract had been canceled without notice. "Corporate decision," he said. "Sorry, Maria. I have bills to pay." It felt like a chess game where Ethan kept taking pieces from our side and calling it strategy. One night after the kitchen closed and the last coffee cup was wiped dry, I sat with Maya and Harper in my office. It was late. My hands shook from exhaustion. Maya looked at me with hard calm. "We can file tomorrow, emergency accounting, injunction. But there's one more step I recommend before we go public with subpoenas." "Which is?" I asked. "Prepare for a counterstrike. He will get an injunction of his own. He will try to freeze assets, intimidate staff, and question your credibility. We need a narrative that protects the people first. We need documented witness statements, payroll records, and a public-facing story that's unassailable." I thought of Maria, of Luisa's scowl, of Cassie's careful hands. I thought of Dad. "Then we do it," I said. As dawn crept over Phoenix and the diner's neon sign dimmed with the morning light, I realized the war had changed shape. It wasn't just legal, it was social, reputational, and deeply human. And in the middle of it all, I had to become something I never thought I would be: a strategist who could hold anger and empathy at the same time. We filed the paperwork that afternoon, papers stamped, petitions logged. Maya promised she'd go after those transfers with everything she had. But when I left the office, there was a new paper taped to the front door. A simple yellow sheet like a warning. "Court notice. Temporary restraining order requested." It was signed by Ethan's attorney. It used legal words I didn't fully understand but felt like a cold hand pressing my chest. My phone buzzed. A text from Maria. "They're already moving to freeze accounts. Be careful." For the first time since all of this started, dread crawled under my skin. We had taken a giant step forward, and he'd met it with something that could stop us dead. I looked at the diner's old sign, at the chipped paint, at the regulars setting out their plates, unaware of the paperwork racing through courtrooms above them. The next move would decide everything. The court notice was taped crookedly on the diner's glass door, but its message was sharp as a knife. Ethan was striking first. The words "temporary restraining order" stared at me like an accusation. It meant I couldn't access financial records, contact certain vendors, or interfere with operations. The same operations I built from scratch. My hands shook as I tore the paper down. The glue stuck to my fingers, tacky and bitter. Dad used to say, "When someone corners you, don't swing wild. Aim true." I repeated that like a prayer. Because this wasn't just a lawsuit, it was war, fought with signatures and silence. That afternoon, Maya called. "They filed fast," she said, "but the judge hasn't approved the order yet. We have a window, maybe 48 hours, to respond and present your side before the freeze becomes official." 48 hours, I echoed, staring at the calendar. "That's not much." "No," she said, "but it's enough if we're smart." "You have staff statements?" "Yes, and proof of his shell company." "Good. Then we'll make it public after the filing. Controlled timing, no leaks before court." I nodded, though she couldn't see me. "We'll make it count." That night, the diner felt haunted, not by ghosts, but by memories. The chairs were stacked, the lights dimmed. I walked through the kitchen, fingers brushing the steel counters I'd scrubbed since I was a teen. You can't let him take this place, my mind whispered. I opened my laptop on the prep counter and started compiling everything into a single folder. Statements, screenshots, timestamps, articles from the blog, and Harper's financial charts. Each file was a weapon, and I planned to aim carefully. But revenge doesn't come without collateral. At 10 p.m., Maria called me in tears. Sol, Ethan just fired Luis. He said it's for insubordination. I froze. Insubordination? What happened? He asked about missing payroll funds. Ethan said he was stirring trouble. I clenched the phone. Tell Luis not to sign anything. I'll handle it. Maria sniffled. He's scared, Sol. We all are. Her voice broke. I wanted to cry too, but I swallowed it. Listen to me, Maria. He can fire one of us, but not all of us. We're stronger together. Tell everyone to sit tight. I'm not done. The next day, I wore my best blazer, the same one I wore when I spoke at the Chamber of Commerce years ago. I wanted Ethan to see me not as the little sister, but as an equal adversary. Maya and I drove to the courthouse downtown. The air smelled like asphalt and old air conditioning. Inside, everything felt sterile. Marble, whispers, ticking clocks. We submitted our petition, a motion opposing Ethan's restraining order and demanding an independent forensic audit of the trust and business accounts. When the clerk stamped the paper, the sound echoed like a gunshot. After filing, Maya turned to me. Now we wait for the judge's review. It could take hours or days. I exhaled. We don't have days. Then we use the time. And we did. Harper stayed up cross-checking every vendor account, tracing Ethan's transfers through his consulting firm. Maria gathered messages from staff, recording voice notes about withheld pay and changed contracts. I drafted a press statement, factual, calm, and impossible to ignore. By dawn, I was running on caffeine and defiance. At sunrise, Ethan appeared at the diner, flanked by his new PR manager and 2 lawyers. He looked confident, too confident. Morning, Celine, he said. I'd appreciate it if you didn't cause any more disruptions. The court will handle this soon. I smiled thinly. Oh, I'm counting on it. His lawyer stepped forward. Ms. Archer, please vacate the premises. The property is under review. This is my workplace, I said. Not anymore, Ethan added. You made it personal. I'm protecting the business. I stared at him, searching for a trace of the boy who used to chase fireflies behind the diner. He was gone. All right, I said quietly. Protect it. But don't forget, everyone's watching now. And I turned and walked out before he could reply. That night, we made it public. Harper scheduled the release on Heart of the Grill. One post titled The Truth Behind Archer Eats. It contained screenshots, data, payroll discrepancies, and links to official filings. Nothing sensational, just truth, clean and sharp. Within hours, comments exploded. We knew something was off. That family diner raised us. Don't let them destroy it. Justice for Celine. The local paper called before midnight. By morning, 3 TV stations wanted interviews. I didn't feel joy, only gravity. Truth, once released, couldn't be pulled back. Ethan reacted fast. He issued a statement denying all accusations and accusing me of emotional instability and fabricating data to regain power. Classic tactic, discredit the woman before the facts land. But what he didn't realize was that Harper had already sent the full records to the Attorney General's office. This wasn't just a family squabble anymore. It was an official investigation. At 3 a.m., I couldn't sleep. I sat by the window, watching Phoenix's orange streetlights flicker against the night sky. Dad used to tell me, truth takes time to cook. Rush it and it burns. Maybe he was right. Maybe this needed to simmer before justice was served. My phone buzzed. A message from Harper. Audit request accepted. State investigators open inquiry tomorrow. Hold steady. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. The ground beneath my feet finally felt solid. Then another buzz. This one from an unknown number. The text read, "Stop now or you'll regret it." No name, no signature, just threat. For the first time in weeks, a chill ran through me. Not anger, not grief, but something colder. Someone, maybe Ethan, maybe someone higher up, was getting nervous. And nervous people do desperate things. The clock on the diner wall ticked toward dawn. The air smelled faintly of coffee and courage. I stared at the threatening message one last time, then deleted it. If they wanted fear, they'd have to look somewhere else. Because I was done being scared. Sleep didn't come easy that night. Every creak in my apartment felt like a warning. Every flicker of light outside made me wonder if someone was watching. The anonymous message replayed in my head, "Stop now or you'll regret it." But I'd already crossed too many lines to turn back. Fear was a luxury I couldn't afford anymore. By morning, Phoenix blazed with heat. The kind of dry, merciless heat that makes asphalt shimmer and tempers short. Maya called at 7 a.m. "The state investigators are moving faster than I expected," she said. "They've requested access to the diner's financial systems and all associated records." I blinked. "So it's official?" "It's official," she confirmed. "But Celine? Ethan's not going to take this quietly." I laughed under my breath. He never does. At noon, Ethan called. His voice was calm, too calm. "You're really enjoying yourself, huh? Dragging the family name through the mud." I stayed quiet. He continued. "You think you've won because some auditors are poking around? You have no idea who you're dealing with." Finally, I spoke. "You're right, I used to think you were my brother, but now I know you're just a man terrified of losing control." There was a pause, then a soft laugh. "Control isn't something I lose, Saul. It's something I take back." And he hung up. That was the moment I knew this wouldn't just be about paperwork anymore. That evening, I stopped by the diner to meet Maria. The neon sign buzzed overhead, casting red light across the parking lot. The place looked different now, half corporate, half wounded soul. Maria met me at the door, clutching her phone. "Saul, you need to see this." She handed it to me. A video was playing, Ethan giving a press interview. "My sister has been under a lot of emotional stress," he was saying. "We're deeply saddened by her actions, but we'll always love her as family. We just hope she gets the help she needs." The reporter nodded sympathetically. He'd turned me into a mental case on live TV. My stomach dropped. "He's weaponizing empathy." Maria looked furious. "What are we going to do?" I took a long breath. "We don't fight that lie with more noise. We fight it with proof." That night, Harper sent me a file titled Statement Package. Inside were notarized affidavits from 10 employees, all describing the manipulation, the sudden payroll cuts, and Ethan's intimidation tactics. Each one ended with the same line: "We stand with Celine Archer." Tears welled in my eyes. I hadn't realized how many people were willing to risk their jobs for me. I called Harper. "You're a genius," she laughed softly. "Just an accountant who hates bullies." Maya filed the affidavits as supplemental evidence with the state's fraud division. That move changed everything. 2 days later, investigators arrived unannounced at the diner. Suits, badges, quiet authority. They confiscated computers, flash drives, and transaction logs. Ethan tried to act calm, smiling for cameras, shaking hands, but sweat betrayed him. When I saw him across the street, his eyes met mine. For the first time, there was something new in them. Not anger, not arrogance, fear. But the closer justice came, the darker his tactics grew. Late that night, as I drove home, I noticed headlights in my rearview mirror. The same car following me for blocks. I turned left, then right. The car turned with me. My pulse pounded. I pulled into a gas station, parking under bright lights. The car idled across the street for a moment, then drove off. When I got home, my hands were still trembling. Was it paranoia or a message? I called Maya. "Someone followed me," she paused. "Document it, every time. Don't go anywhere alone." I hated that I needed to hear that. The next morning, news broke. State investigation confirms potential fraud at Archer Eats. The story hit every local outlet. Interviews, online articles, social media threads. The public turned fast. For the first time, I wasn't the crazy sister. I was the whistleblower. Maria texted me a photo of the morning rush at the diner. Customers wearing Team Celine buttons someone had printed overnight. I laughed and cried all at once. But joy turned to tension by noon. Maya called again. Her tone was sharp. "Ethan filed a counter-complaint. He's accusing you of embezzlement now." "What?" I nearly dropped my phone. "That's insane." "He's desperate," Maya said. "But the claim forces the court to hold a hearing. We need to prepare your defense fast." That night, I sat at my kitchen table, surrounded by files and photos, the city lights blinking through the window. This wasn't just about saving the diner anymore. It was about truth, legacy, and every woman who'd been told she was too emotional to lead. I recorded a short video, not for PR, not for the press, but for myself. "My name is Celine Archer," I said. "My father built something with his hands, and I won't let greed bury it. This isn't revenge anymore, it's reclamation." I hit save. The red light blinked off. The next day at court, the hearing room buzzed with tension. Ethan sat across from me. Flawless suit, smug expression, lawyers flanking him like bodyguards. When the judge called the case, Maya rose first, her tone crisp. Your Honor, we present irrefutable evidence that Mr. Archer altered legal documents posthumously, transferred company funds into personal accounts, and attempted to silence witnesses through coercion. Ethan's lawyer scoffed. Pure fiction. My client? The judge raised a hand. We'll see the documents. Maya passed them forward. I watched Ethan's confidence waver for the first time. The judge flipped through pages, eyebrows lifting slightly. These dates, these signatures. He looked up. Mr. Archer, were these amendments made after your father's passing? Ethan's jaw clenched. I can't confirm that. The room went silent. The judge leaned back. Then until verification, all accounts under the Archer Family Trust are frozen. Both parties are prohibited from disbursement. Ethan's mask cracked. I closed my eyes, exhaling shakily. It wasn't victory, not yet, but it was the first breath of justice. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed, microphones flashing. Ms. Archer, do you feel vindicated? Is this revenge or justice? I smiled faintly, sunlight burning on my face. Sometimes they're the same thing, and for the first time in months, I allowed myself to believe that maybe, just maybe, I was winning. But deep down, I knew this wasn't over, because Ethan wasn't the kind of man who lost quietly. And somewhere beneath the diner's polished floors, I could still feel the fire waiting to rise. The night after the court hearing, Phoenix felt different. The air was heavy, not with heat this time, but with expectation. Every radio station buzzed with talk of the Archer case. My phone didn't stop vibrating. News alerts, interview requests, messages from people I hadn't heard from in years. But amid the chaos, one thing was clear. Ethan had finally lost control of the narrative. For the first time in months, I slept. Not peacefully, but deeply. The kind of sleep that comes after surviving a storm, when your body shuts down to rebuild. The next morning, I woke to knocking on my door. Maria stood there, hair messy, holding 2 coffees. You look like hell, she said, handing me one. I smiled faintly. Feel like it too. She sat at my table, scrolling her phone. They're talking about you on Channel 8. The headline says, Local woman stands against corporate fraud and wins round 1. I laughed softly. Round 1, huh? Guess that means there's still a round 2. Her expression darkened. You know there is. Later that afternoon, Maya called with updates. The freeze is holding. Investigators are combing through everything. Emails, bank statements, internal memos. It's going to take time, but they're finding things. I leaned against the window, staring out at the hazy skyline. What kind of things? Fake vendor contracts. Ghost employees. Money routed through 3 states. It's big, Celine. Bigger than we thought. I felt the weight of it. This wasn't just family betrayal anymore. It was white-collar crime. Do you think he'll go to jail? I asked quietly. Maya hesitated. If half of this sticks, yes. I didn't feel satisfaction, just sadness. Because no matter how much I hated what he'd done, a part of me still remembered the boy who used to share milkshakes with me at that counter. That evening, Harper came by with takeout. We sat on the porch, watching the sun melt behind the mountains. You know, she said, you've kind of become a symbol. I raised an eyebrow. A symbol of what? Resilience, truth, family justice. People online are calling you the diner daughter. I groaned. Great, I'm a hashtag now, she grinned. Could be worse. At least they're rooting for you. I smiled, but my heart felt heavy. I never wanted fame. I just wanted fairness. Harper nodded. That's exactly why people believe you. Days passed, and the investigation deepened. Ethan had gone silent. No statements, no public appearances. His lawyers spoke in his place now, every word polished and defensive. But silence can be its own kind of confession. Meanwhile, the diner was struggling. The freeze had halted operations. Some vendors refused deliveries, unsure who'd be paying them. I tried to help where I could, buying groceries for staff, organizing free meals through local charities. One night, Maria called crying again. They're talking about closing, Saul, permanently. I swallowed hard. They won't, not while I'm breathing. The next day, I returned to the diner. The air smelled of dust and memory. The closed for audit sign hung crookedly on the door. I pushed it open and stepped inside. Everything was still, like time had paused mid-shift. Plates stacked, menus half-folded, the smell of coffee faint but lingering. I walked behind the counter, running my hand along the worn laminate. For a moment, I saw Dad there again, laughing, calling out orders, teasing customers about tips. "Keep it honest, Saul," his voice echoed in my mind. "Money comes and goes, but your name, that's forever." I smiled through tears. "I'm trying, Dad." That night, Maya called with breaking news. "The judge has ruled for a public hearing next week," she said. "Full disclosure, financial misconduct, trust violation, everything on record." My breath caught. Public? Yes, cameras, transcripts, the whole thing. It was the moment I'd been fighting for. The truth in daylight. But it also meant everyone would see every detail. The family mess, the pain, the betrayal. There'd be no hiding. "Are you ready for that?" Maya asked gently. I thought for a long moment. Then I said, "I was born in that diner. I grew up watching my dad serve everyone, no matter who they were." "Yeah, I'm ready." The day of the hearing, the courthouse overflowed with people and press. I wore a simple navy suit, hair tied back. Maya walked beside me, calm as stone. When we entered the courtroom, Ethan was already there, thinner now, pale, eyes bloodshot. For a moment, I didn't see the villain. I saw a broken man clinging to what little pride he had left. The judge began, voice steady. "We are here today to determine the legitimacy of financial claims against Ethan Archer and to establish rightful ownership of the Archer Family Trust." Then Maya rose. "Your Honor, we have traced $1.2 million in diverted funds through shell accounts connected directly to Mr. Archer. We have verified forged documents bearing timestamps after Mr. Archer Sr.'s death, and we have testimony from staff confirming intimidation and coercion." The room went silent. Ethan's lawyer stood, sweating. "Those claims are exaggerated." The judge cut him off. "Mr. Archer, do you deny these transactions?" Ethan hesitated. His lips trembled. Then he whispered, "No." Gasps filled the room. The judge's gavel hit once. "Ownership of Archer Family Diner is hereby reinstated under joint trust management, with Ms. Celine Archer as primary operator pending final audit. Further criminal proceedings will continue at the state's discretion." My knees almost buckled. I gripped the table, blinking back tears. Maya placed a hand on my shoulder. "You did it." Outside, the sun was blinding. Reporters swarmed again, but their questions blurred into white noise. Maria ran up and hugged me so hard I could barely breathe. "He can't take it anymore, Saul. It's yours again." Harper was crying openly. "You changed everything, girl." I looked up at the sky, blue, endless, clean. For the first time in what felt like years, I could breathe without fear. A week later, I reopened the diner. The line wrapped around the block. Old customers brought photos. New ones came just to meet me. The air was thick with the smell of pancakes and redemption. I stood behind the counter, apron tied, same as the day I started at 17. And as I flipped the first pancake of the morning, I whispered, "For you, Dad." Final monologue. Some betrayals cut deeper because they come from blood. But sometimes, family isn't who you share a name with. It's who stands beside you when the world burns. I didn't fight to destroy my brother. I fought to protect a promise. And maybe that's what justice really is. Keeping the fire alive, but learning how not to let it consume you. The camera would fade on the sizzling pancake, golden and soft, smoke curling upward like a quiet prayer. The fire was still there, but now it was mine to control. It's strange how quiet victory can sound. No fireworks, no applause, just the hum of the diner's refrigerators and the clatter of plates in the morning rush. The lawsuit was technically over, but in truth, the aftermath was only beginning. Reporters moved on, hashtags faded. But inside me, the echoes remained. Every late night, every betrayal, every tear that fell into coffee that had gone cold hours ago. The world saw me win, but I was still learning how to live after the war. A month had passed since the ruling. Business was booming again. The regulars had returned, families brought their kids, and the new sign out front, Archer Family Diner, since 1978, still honest, still home, gleamed proudly in the sunlight. Yet even amid laughter and sizzling bacon, I carried a shadow inside me. Ethan was gone from Phoenix. His lawyers said he'd relocated to Los Angeles for recovery. No prison sentence yet. The criminal case was still ongoing, but his reputation was shattered. Sometimes I'd find myself wondering what he was doing, whether he regretted it, whether he missed home. One evening, just after closing, I stayed behind to balance receipts. The lights were dim, the neon sign flickered, and the air was thick with the scent of old coffee. That's when I heard the door chime. I looked up and froze. It was Ethan. He looked smaller somehow, not physically, but hollow, like the fight had drained him. His once perfect suit was replaced with a plain shirt and worn jeans. "Hey, Saul," he said softly. "You look good." I didn't move. "What are you doing here?" He hesitated, then held up a brown envelope. "I needed to give you this." I stared at it but didn't take it. "Another trust amendment? Or is it a confession this time?" He winced. "Neither, just an apology." For a long moment, I couldn't speak. The man standing before me wasn't the arrogant executive who'd stolen my legacy. He was my brother, bruised, tired, human. I crossed my arms. "You almost destroyed everything, Ethan. The diner, the people, me." He nodded. "I know, I thought I was saving it, saving us. But really, I was saving my ego." His voice cracked. "I grew up watching Dad call you the heart of this place. I wanted to prove I could be something too. And when I couldn't, I tried to take yours." The silence between us felt like a wound reopening. Finally, I whispered, "You didn't just take my work. You made me doubt my worth." He looked down. "I know. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know I remember what this place smelled like when Dad was here. Coffee, butter, and something good burning. I miss that." I didn't answer for a while. Then slowly, I took the envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter. No legal jargon, no excuses, just truth. "You were always the one with heart, Saul. I just had ambition without soul. If you ever let me back in, I'll scrub floors, wash dishes, whatever it takes, not to own it, just to help keep it alive." I folded the letter carefully. "You really mean that?" He nodded. There was something fragile about the way he stood, like a man learning how to exist without power. I sighed. "I don't know if I can forgive you, Ethan. Not yet, but maybe, someday." He smiled faintly. "That's more than I deserve." When he left, I stood alone in the quiet diner, staring at the chair Dad used to sit in. For the first time, I didn't feel anger, just exhaustion and release. Harper came by a few minutes later, holding takeout. She looked at my face and froze. "You okay?" I nodded slowly. He came by. Her eyes widened. "What? Here? What did he want?" "An apology." "And did you believe him?" I looked toward the door. "I think I believed his pain." She sighed, sitting down. "You're a better person than I'd be." I smiled weakly. "No, just someone tired of hating." Over the next few weeks, I started rebuilding not just the diner, but the community around it. We hosted charity breakfasts, offered free meals to veterans, even started a small scholarship fund for culinary students, funded by the diner's profits and donations from locals. People began to call it the second-generation diner. I liked that, because it wasn't just my victory, it was everyone's. Maya still dropped by sometimes, always with legal updates. "The fraud case is still open," she told me one afternoon. "But with your cooperation, the state might consider a settlement. They've seen enough to bar Ethan from any business ownership for years." I nodded. "That's fair. Let him start over somewhere new. Maybe this time he'll build instead of steal." She smiled. "You really are forgiving him, aren't you?" "Trying to," I said quietly. "Because holding on to hate is like keeping fire in your hands. It only burns you." One night, long after closing, I sat outside under the flickering neon sign, the desert wind warm against my face. Maria joined me with 2 milkshakes, vanilla, just like Dad used to make. "To survival," she said, clinking her cup against mine. I laughed softly. "To rebuilding." She grinned. "To forgiveness, maybe." I smiled at the stars. "Yeah, maybe to that too." Weeks later, a letter arrived with no return address. Inside was a photo. Ethan standing in front of a small diner in Los Angeles. On the back, written in shaky handwriting, "Trying again. This time I'm doing it right. E." I stared at it for a long time. Then, without thinking, I placed it under the frame of Dad's old photo, the one where he stood beside me, both of us covered in pancake batter and smiling like fools. Maybe redemption isn't about erasing what was done. Maybe it's about choosing who you become after the damage. Final monologue. When people betray you, they take a part of you with them. But if you're lucky, they also leave behind something you didn't have before. Strength, clarity, and the courage to forgive. I used to think revenge would heal me, but now I know only compassion can close the wound completely. I didn't rebuild this diner to prove I was right. I rebuilt it to remember who I am. The camera pans out, the diner glowing against the Phoenix night, laughter spilling through open windows, the sign flickering softly, still honest, still home. The same fire that once burned with rage now glowed with peace. Because this time, it wasn't about revenge. It was about release. It's been a year since the storm passed. A year since the courtroom lights dimmed, and I walked out of those doors carrying both victory and loss in equal measure. The diner stands stronger than ever now, the paint fresh, the sign proud, the people inside laughing like they used to. Sometimes I still catch the scent of burnt coffee in the air and imagine Dad standing by the griddle, smirking at me. "Told you, Saul," he'd say. "You don't win by fighting people, you win by feeding them." He was right, because in the end, the diner didn't just survive. It became something more. A place where people came not only to eat, but to heal. The walls are covered now with photos. Families who met here, soldiers returning home, high school kids celebrating their first paychecks. Every picture tells a story. Every story adds a heartbeat. On weekends, we run a small community breakfast, where anyone who's struggling can eat for free. Sometimes I stand behind the counter and watch. A single mom with 2 kids. An old man counting coins that he no longer needs to spend. And I realize, what we built here is bigger than revenge, bigger than justice. It's legacy. Harper still visits often, always late in the afternoon when the light hits the booths just right. She brings pie from a new bakery she started, Whistle Stop Sweets. She says she got the courage to open it after seeing me fight for the diner. "You inspired me," she says every time, but I always laugh. "Harper, you've been saving my life with spreadsheets since day one. If anyone's inspiring, it's you." She grins, fork in hand. "Fine, we'll call it even." Maya too stops by, still calm, still sharp. The state closed Ethan's case with a settlement. Restitution, probation, business ban for 10 years. He avoided prison but lost what mattered most, the power he thought defined him. When Maya told me I didn't feel triumph, just closure, it was enough. "You did the right thing," she said. "I didn't do it to win," I replied. "I did it to stop losing." She smiled. "Then you really did win?" A few months later, I got another letter from Ethan. Shorter this time, and less shaky. The diner here in LA is small but steady. I named it Second Chance Cafe. You'd laugh. I even burn the pancakes sometimes. I don't know if you'll ever visit, but if you do, the first cup of coffee's on me. I stared at the note for a long while, then tucked it behind the counter register, next to Dad's old recipe card. The handwriting was messy, but the sentiment was clean. Life settled into rhythm again. Morning rush, laughter, grease, the low hum of conversation. But something inside me had changed. I no longer looked at success as profit or praise. To me, success became peace. I spent my evenings training new cooks, young kids chasing dreams the way I once did. I taught them how to fold napkins, how to greet regulars by name, and most importantly, how to cook with heart. Food tastes different when it comes from love, I'd tell them. And love once lost takes courage to serve again. They'd nod, not fully understanding, but someday they would. One summer night, as the sun sank behind the desert horizon, Maria closed the register and turned to me. "Do you ever think about what's next, Saul?" I smiled, wiping my hands on a towel. "Next? I think this is next." She shook her head. "No, I mean beyond the diner. You've built something beautiful. Maybe teach others how to do it?" The idea caught me off guard. Me? Teach? But later that night, I found myself writing a note on the napkin holder. Workshop, How to Build and Protect a Family Business, hosted by Celine Archer. A month later, 50 people showed up. Owners, dreamers, survivors. They listened as I told my story. Not the polished version, but the real one. The fear, the lawsuits, the heartbreak, and the forgiveness that saved me from myself. When the workshop ended, a young woman came up to me, tears in her eyes. "My brother's doing the same thing to me," she whispered. I didn't think I could fight back until I heard you. I squeezed her hand. You can. Just remember, fight for the truth, not for revenge. As I locked up the diner that night, the streetlights flickered on one by one, painting the pavement gold. The neon sign buzzed softly, casting its familiar glow. Still honest. Still home. I took a breath, the air warm and sweet with the smell of maple syrup and memory. The past no longer haunted me, it guided me, because revenge had been the spark. But forgiveness was the flame that kept me alive. The desert mornings in Phoenix are quieter now. The world seems to breathe slower, as if the heat itself has learned patience. Every dawn, I unlock the diner, flip the lights, and smell the first pot of coffee brewing. The sound of sizzling batter on the griddle still comforts me, like an old song that never leaves your bones. But this morning feels different. Maybe it's the way sunlight glints off the windows. Maybe it's what waits in the envelope lying on my counter. A letter from Ethan. He hadn't written in months. The last I'd heard, Second Chance Cafe was doing well. Modest, but steady. I'd sent him a brief note on his birthday. Keep cooking, keep trying. Now, his handwriting was across the envelope again, familiar and sharp. I hesitated before opening it. For a long time, I just traced the letters of my name. Celine. Finally, I tore it open. Hey sis, it's strange, writing to you again. The cafe's been busy, a good kind of busy. Sometimes I still burn the bacon, but people forgive me faster now. I think that's the best part, learning forgiveness not from sermons or books, but from strangers who show up hungry and leave smiling. I've been thinking about Dad lately, about how he used to tell us the diner wasn't about food. It was about belonging. I didn't understand that before, but I do now. I know I can't make up for what I did. I stole something bigger than money. I stole your peace. But you gave me something back I never expected. A chance to rebuild. Thank you for that, truly. If you ever come to LA, there's a seat by the window waiting for you. I'll make the pancakes this time, and try not to burn them. Love, E. When I finished reading, I didn't cry. I smiled, the kind of smile that comes from knowing a wound has finally scarred over. I folded the letter carefully and placed it beside Dad's old photograph. His grin, frozen in time, seemed to widen. Looks like you got through to him, Dad, I whispered. The fire didn't burn him down after all. Later that morning, the diner filled up fast. Maria manned the register. Harper handled deliveries, and the jukebox played softly in the background. As I poured coffee for a group of regulars, I noticed a young man sitting alone in the corner booth. Nervous, fidgeting, glancing at the job application in front of him. He looked like me years ago, hungry, not for food, but for a chance. I walked over. You thinking of joining us? He startled. Yeah, if you're hiring. I smiled. We always are? What's your name? Caleb, he said. I've worked kitchens before, but never one that felt like this place. Like what? He looked around. Like home. I felt something warm bloom in my chest. Then you're already halfway there. That night, after closing, I sat by the window, staring out at the glowing Phoenix skyline. For the first time, the diner didn't just belong to my family. It belonged to everyone who walked through those doors. Ethan's letter replayed in my head. His words weren't just apology. They were acknowledgement. A bridge rebuilt, fragile but real. And I realized something profound. Forgiveness doesn't erase pain. It transforms it, from a weapon into wisdom. Weeks passed, and the world moved on, as it always does. But small reminders kept me grounded. A new customer telling me she'd driven 3 hours just to eat where courage was cooked. A handwritten thank you note from a student whose scholarship we'd funded. A kid taking his first bite of pancakes and grinning like he'd found heaven. Every story found its place here, stitched into the fabric of the diner's legacy. Sometimes I'd read old headlines. Local woman reclaims family business. I'd smile, because that was only half the truth. I didn't just reclaim the business, I reclaimed myself. One quiet evening, as the sky faded purple and the air smelled like rain, I took Dad's old apron from the hook and held it close. The cotton was thin, almost threadbare from decades of work. You'd laugh if you saw this, Dad, I whispered. We've got social media now. Online orders, vegan pancakes. You'd say it's witchcraft. The jukebox clicked, and one of his favorite songs started playing. What a wonderful world. I looked around at the booths, the laughter, the glow of neon, and for a moment, I saw everything he'd dreamed of. and everything he'd left behind. And I knew the story wasn't ending. It was simply passing hands. A year later, I still wake before the sun. The city's quiet hum greets me like an old friend. Distant traffic, faint bird song, the whisper of desert wind brushing the windows. Phoenix has changed, but so have I. Once, I lived on adrenaline, fighting battles, chasing justice, burning from the inside out. Now I live on peace, slow mornings, real laughter, the steady rhythm of the diner's heartbeat. But even peace has a pulse. And today, that pulse feels alive again. It's the diner's 50th anniversary. 50 years since Dad served his first plate of pancakes. 50 years since the first cup of coffee spilled on that same counter I still polish every morning. The place looks radiant. Balloons, streamers, a banner that reads, 50 years of family, food, and forgiveness. Maria's managing the decorations. Harper's organizing the local press. And Maya's coming by later. Not as my lawyer this time, but as my friend. As I set the last tray of muffins on the shelf, I take a step back and breathe it all in. 50 years of stories. 50 years of scars turned into strength. By noon, the diner is packed. Old faces and new ones fill the booths. Generations of families who grew up on Dad's recipes. A young reporter approaches, notebook in hand. "Ms. Archer, may I ask what kept you going all these years?" I smile, stirring my coffee. "Simple," I say. "People." Every person who walked through that door carried a story. I just made sure they had a place to tell it. She writes that down slowly, eyes soft. And forgiveness? Was it hard? I look toward the photo wall, my father, the staff, and yes, even one of Ethan smiling awkwardly at the grand reopening. It's always hard, I answer, but that's what makes it real. As the day rolls on, laughter fills every corner. A local band sets up outside, playing soft jazz under the Arizona sun. Kids run around the patio, chasing bubbles. Then a car pulls up. I know that car. The crowd parts slightly as Ethan steps out. Older now, calm, wearing a crisp white shirt and holding a small box. My heart skips. He approaches the counter, smiling gently. "Hey, Saul." "Hey, stranger," I reply. "Didn't expect to see you in Phoenix." He chuckles. "I couldn't miss 50 years of Archer Eats. Thought I'd bring something." He opens the box. Inside is a small brass plaque, engraved with words that make my breath hitch. For Dad, who built a table big enough for forgiveness. For a moment, I can't speak. The customers quiet down as I read it aloud. Then softly, I say, "Let's hang it right by the register." He helps me screw it into the wall. When we step back, sunlight from the front window lands perfectly on the plaque, making it gleam like gold. The crowd applauds. Maria wipes her eyes. Harper pretends she isn't crying. I turn to Ethan. "Still burning pancakes?" He laughs. "Every week, but they sell out." "Then maybe you're finally doing it right." He grins. "Maybe I learned from the best." Later, when the rush slows, we sit outside on the bench Dad built years ago. The air smells of coffee and sunlight. "It's strange," Ethan says quietly. "I used to think success meant owning everything. Now I think it's about belonging somewhere." I nod. Took me a while to learn that too. He turns to me. "You ever regret forgiving me?" I shake my head. "No, I'd regret not forgiving you more." He exhales. "Then we're good?" I smile. "We're family. That's better than good." He chuckles. "Guess Dad was right all along," I grin. He usually was. The evening falls soft and golden. The last guests leave, and I stand at the doorway, watching the lights flicker across the parking lot. Inside, the plaque glows against the wall, warm and steady. Harper hugs me goodbye. Maria turns off the jukebox. Ethan lingers, staring at the old photo of Dad. "You know," he says, "I still dream about him flipping pancakes, yelling at us to clean up the syrup." I laugh. He'd love that we turned his diner into a sanctuary. Ethan smiles wistfully. He'd love that you never gave up. I look around, eyes glistening. Neither did you. That night, after everyone leaves, I sit alone by the counter. The air hums quietly, familiar, gentle, alive. I pour myself one last cup of coffee, lean back, and close my eyes. I think about the girl I was when this began, furious, betrayed, desperate to prove her worth, and the woman I am now, calm, grounded, grateful. The fire inside me never died. It just learned how to warm instead of burn. The morning light over Phoenix was different that day, softer, golden, like the city itself was exhaling after years of holding its breath. I stood outside the diner before opening, coffee in hand, watching the sunrise stretch across the desert skyline. The neon sign still flickered faintly. Still honest, still home. 51 years old and still alive. The air smelled of pancakes, butter, and a hint of memory. Every morning felt like a small rebirth. The kind that doesn't need celebration, only gratitude. Inside, Maria was already humming while setting tables. Harper was in the kitchen experimenting with a new syrup flavor, lavender and vanilla. "You're up early," Harper said with a grin. "Couldn't sleep?" I sipped my coffee. "Didn't want to. Some mornings you just want to feel everything." She smiled knowingly. "You're thinking about him again, huh?" I nodded. "Dad and Ethan." She wiped her hands on her apron. "You should visit him, Saul." I raised an eyebrow. "Who, Dad or Ethan?" "Both," she said softly. "One's in heaven. The other's waiting for you in LA." The thought lingered long after she went back to work. It had been almost a year since Ethan last wrote. I knew he was rebuilding. That Second Chance Cafe was doing well, but I hadn't visited. Not once. Maybe I was afraid of seeing him and realizing how much time we'd wasted. Years lost to pride and silence. But maybe it was time. A week later, I took the drive west. The desert highway shimmered like glass, endless and quiet. I rolled the windows down, letting the warm wind carry the scent of dust and freedom. As the miles passed, I found myself whispering to Dad's memory. "I'm going to see him, Dad. Not to reopen wounds. Just to see how your sons and daughters turned out." By the time I reached Los Angeles, the sun was low, washing the streets in amber. I found the cafe easily, tucked between a bookstore and a flower shop. The sign above the door read, "Second Chance Cafe, home for the hungry and the hopeful." I smiled. That sounded like Ethan. Through the window, I saw him, older, gentler, laughing with a young barista. The place looked small but full of life, warmth, connection, family. When I stepped inside, the bell above the door chimed, and Ethan turned. For a heartbeat, neither of us spoke. Then he grinned. "Well, I'll be damned." My sister finally showed up. I laughed. "You make it sound like I missed a holiday." "Feels like one," he said. "Come in, I'll make you something." I sat at the counter, the same way I did at Dad's diner decades ago. Ethan moved behind the griddle with easy confidence, flipping a pancake that looked, surprisingly, perfect. "Smells good," I teased. He smirked. "Told you I'd stop burning them." When he set the plate in front of me, I noticed he'd shaped the pancake like a heart. Typical Ethan. Sentimental when no one's looking. We ate in comfortable silence for a while, just the sound of forks and the hum of the coffee machine. Then he said quietly, "I visited Phoenix last month. Didn't have the courage to come inside." I looked up. "You should have. Everyone would have welcomed you." He shook his head. "I didn't want to disturb what you built. You've made it sacred." I reached across the counter and touched his hand. "You're part of it too, Ethan. Always will be." He smiled, that same boyish grin I thought I'd never see again. "Guess we finally found our peace, huh?" "Yeah," I said softly. "We did." Later that evening, after closing time, we sat outside his cafe under strings of light. Cars whispered by. The city buzzed quietly, alive but calm. Ethan leaned back, looking at the stars barely visible through LA's haze. "Do you ever miss him?" he asked. "Every day," I said. "But I think he's still around. In the smell of coffee, in the way customers smile, in the songs we play on the jukebox." Ethan nodded. "You know what's funny? I used to think Dad was just a cook. Now I realize he was a builder, not of food, but of people." I smiled. "That's the best kind of builder." Before I left, Ethan handed me a sealed envelope. "For you." Inside was a photograph, the two of us as kids sitting on the diner floor covered in flour. Dad stood behind us, laughing. On the back, Ethan had written, "To the sister who taught me that second chances are real." Tears blurred my vision. I hugged him tight. "You're doing good, big brother," he laughed. Guess I finally caught up. The next morning, I drove back to Phoenix, the photograph on my dashboard catching the light. When I reached the city, dawn was breaking, soft and hopeful. At the diner, Maria and Harper were waiting at the door, grinning like kids. "How was he?" Harper asked. "Different," I said, "but the same where it matters." They exchanged smiles. I unlocked the door, flipped the sign to open, and whispered to myself, "Welcome home, Saul." Phoenix, 5 years later. The desert sun still burned gold in the mornings, but everything else had changed. the city, the people, even me. The diner was no longer just a place to eat. It had become a landmark, part of the rhythm of the neighborhood. There were more staff now, more laughter, more stories, and a new name on the menu board, Maya's Pancake Special. I smiled every time I saw it. It wasn't named after the lawyer, but after my daughter. Yes, my daughter. Her name was Maya Elise Archer, 6 years old, curious and fearless, with my brown eyes and her father's easy grin. She spent her mornings sitting on the counter, doodling in crayons while I worked. Customers adored her. Another little Archer in the kitchen, Maria would tease, ruffling her hair. Maya would giggle. Grandpa used to cook too, right, Mommy? Every time she said that, my heart squeezed. Yeah, baby, I'd answer softly. Grandpa taught us everything. Sometimes she'd ask, will I get to cook one day too? And I'd grin. You already are. Every smile you make is part of this recipe. The diner had grown, not in size, but in soul. Ethan's cafe in Los Angeles was thriving as well. We called each other often, trading business advice and silly family stories. He sent a picture last Christmas, him standing with his staff, a second chance banner behind them. He looked peaceful, whole. For the first time in decades, the Archer family wasn't broken. One afternoon, a young journalist visited for an anniversary feature. She couldn't have been older than 23, all bright eyes and fast-typing fingers. Ms. Archer, she began, your story has become something of a local legend. Betrayal, resilience, forgiveness. It's cinematic. Do you ever think about turning it into a book or a film? I laughed. People like stories with clean endings. Life's messier than that. But you did find your happy ending, didn't you? She asked. I thought about Ethan, about Dad, about every person who had walked through that door. Broken, hungry, lost. Then I smiled. I found peace, I said. That's even better. After she left, I sat with Maya at our favorite corner booth. She was coloring a picture, 3 people holding hands in front of a diner. The sign above read in shaky letters, still honest, still home. My chest tightened. That's beautiful, sweetheart. Who's that? She pointed with her crayon. That's you. That's Uncle Ethan. And that's Grandpa in the sky. Tears burned my eyes before I could stop them. Kids have a way of seeing truth simply, without the noise adults add. That night, after closing, I went out back. The air was cool, filled with desert silence and faint city noise. I looked up at the stars, remembering all the years that had brought me here. The betrayal, the war, the rebuilding, the forgiveness. It felt distant now, like a story I once lived but no longer belonged to. What replaced it was gratitude. For every heartbreak that taught me strength. For every wrong turn that led me to this peace. For every burned pancake that reminded me perfection was never the goal. Love was. The next morning, Maya ran in holding a small box. Mommy, look, Uncle Ethan sent a package. I opened it, and inside was a framed photo. Ethan holding his newborn son, smiling proudly. Beneath it, a note. Meet Archer James, born on Dad's birthday. Thought it was only right to keep the legacy cooking. I laughed through my tears. Another Archer boy in the kitchen, huh? Maya clapped her hands. Yay, I have a cousin. Yeah, I whispered, hugging her tight. You sure do. Weeks later, Ethan called. I'm thinking of bringing the kids to Phoenix next month, he said. Maybe a joint family breakfast? Only if you promise not to burn the pancakes. He laughed, no guarantees. When we hung up, I sat for a moment, imagining it. The sound of kids laughing in both diners. 2 generations rebuilding what one almost lost. That's when I realized. Revenge had ended years ago, but redemption? That was eternal. On the diner's 55th anniversary, we held a community breakfast that filled every inch of space. Veterans, students, single parents. Everyone sat together like family. Harper made her signature pies. Maria danced between tables. Maya handed out napkins and high fives. And I stood behind the counter, just watching. The light, the laughter, the love. For a moment, I felt something warm at my shoulder. A breeze. A whisper. You did good, kiddo. It was Dad. I didn't hear his voice exactly, but I felt it. In my chest, in the air, in the rhythm of the diner that would never stop beating. 10 years later, Phoenix had changed again. New towers, electric cars, the hum of technology blending with the desert wind. But in the middle of all that progress stood something that refused to fade. Archer Family Diner, the same neon sign, the The same warm smell of coffee and buttered toast drifting onto the street. The same laughter, softer now, maybe older, but no less full of life. And behind the counter, not me, but Maya. She was 16 now, tall, confident, the same sharp spark in her eyes I'd once had. She moved between the tables with effortless grace, greeting customers by name, refilling coffee, flipping pancakes with the same easy rhythm I learned from my father. I watched her from the doorway, heart swelling with pride and nostalgia. She caught my eye and grinned. "You're staring, Mom." "I'm allowed to stare," I said, laughing. "I made you." "Technically, you and Dad," she teased. "But I guess you did most of the work." Smart kid, too smart. After the breakfast rush, she came over with 2 mugs of coffee. One for me, one for her. "I added cinnamon," she said. "Grandpa's favorite, right?" I blinked. "You remember that?" She shrugged. "You talk about him like he's still here. Kinda feels like he is." I looked around the diner, at the photos, the plaque Ethan gave me, the framed recipe card with Dad's messy handwriting. "Yeah," I whispered. "He never left." Ethan's son, Archer James, was now 10 and full of energy. Their family visited often, sometimes by surprise, always with laughter. Ethan himself was grayer, wiser, still running Second Chance Cafe with the same warmth that saved both our lives. When he came by that week, Maya ran to hug him. "Uncle Ethan, did you bring the blueberry syrup?" He laughed. "Always do, kiddo. Gotta keep the Archer flavor consistent." Watching the 2 of them together made something inside me ache. Not sadness, just the quiet realization of how far we'd come. That night, we all sat outside the diner, the desert air cool and golden. Ethan leaned back, looking at the sky. "Remember when we thought the diner was cursed?" I laughed. "I remember when you cursed the diner." He chuckled, rubbing the back of his neck. "Fair point." Maya, curious, asked, "Wait, what happened?" Ethan and I exchanged a glance. "Long story," I said. He grinned. "Short version, I was stupid. Your mom was brilliant, and forgiveness saved us both." Maya tilted her head. "So, like a movie?" "More like a series," I said, smiling. 12 long parts. Later, as the night deepened, I pulled out an old box from the storage closet. Faded photos, letters, and a few keepsakes. Maya joined me, curiosity shining in her eyes. "What's all this?" she asked. "History," I said softly. "Our kind of treasure." We went through it together. Dad's old apron, Ethan's first trust amendment letter, the one I never threw away. The newspaper headline from the day we won back the diner. Maya ran her fingers over the pages carefully. "Mom, you went through all this just to keep the diner." I nodded. "To keep us." She was quiet for a moment. Then she whispered, "I don't know if I could be that strong." I took her hand. "You don't have to be. Strength doesn't mean never breaking. It means loving enough to rebuild after you do." A week later, I fell sick. Nothing serious, just the kind of exhaustion that creeps up when time finally catches your body. Maya insisted on taking over the diner for a few days. I protested, but she gave me that same determined look I used to give Dad. "Rest, Mom, I've got this." So I did. From the upstairs apartment, I could hear the familiar sounds of the diner, sizzling, laughter, music. Her voice carried through the vents, greeting customers, calling orders, managing chaos with grace. It felt like hearing my younger self echo through time. The next morning, Maya brought me breakfast in bed. Pancakes, perfectly golden, topped with strawberries and cream. I took a bite and smiled. "You've outdone me." She beamed. I used Grandpa's ratio, 2 cups of flour, 1 cup of milk, 1 heart full of chaos. I laughed until I coughed. "Sounds about right." Then she pulled something from her pocket, a folded sheet of paper. "What's that?" She grinned. "My recipe, for forever." I raised an eyebrow. "You wrote your own?" "Yeah," she said, unfolding it. "The recipe for forever. 1 cup of mistakes, so you remember you're human. 2 tablespoons of forgiveness, for yourself and others. A pinch of laughter, never optional. A dash of love to taste. And time, let it simmer until peace rises." My throat tightened. "That's beautiful, Maya." She smiled softly. "You taught me how to make it." A few days later, I returned to the diner. Maya was running the counter. Ethan was visiting with his son. Maria and Harper were chatting in the corner. The jukebox played softly. What a wonderful world. I looked around and realized something profound. This was no longer my story. It was theirs now. And that felt perfect. It was a Sunday morning in Phoenix, quiet, golden, and gentle. The kind of morning that feels like memory before it even becomes one. The Archer family diner buzzed softly with life. The smell of fresh coffee filled the air, bacon sizzled, laughter echoed off the walls, and sunlight streamed through the wide front windows like a blessing. I stood in the doorway, cane in hand now, hair silver, eyes still steady. Maya was behind the counter, calling out orders with that same spark in her voice. And beside her, my grandson, Leo, age 7, trying to flip a pancake twice his size. "Easy, champ," Maya laughed as batter splattered across the grill. "You're supposed to flip it, not launch it into orbit." He giggled uncontrollably, cheeks flushed with joy. And for the 100th time, I realized the diner was never really mine. It was ours, always had been. Later that morning, when the rush slowed, Maya brought me my favorite, black coffee, just the way Dad used to drink it. "You sure you should still be standing this long, Mom?" she asked, setting it down gently. I smiled. "If I can't stand in my own diner, I might as well retire." She smirked. "Retire? You? Please? You'll haunt this place before you ever leave it." "Maybe that's the plan," I teased. "Someone's got to keep you from turning it into a TikTok cafe." "Too late," she said, pulling out her phone and winking. I looked around the diner, packed again, just like it used to be. Families, workers, travelers, and kids. All gathered at the same kind of tables Dad built by hand 5 decades ago. Above the counter hung our family photos. Dad, young and smiling. Ethan, older, calm, and proud. And me, somewhere between the two, forever captured in the years that built this place. Below them hung a small plaque that read, "For everyone who ever needed a place to belong." Around noon, Ethan walked in. Cane in his hand, too, a mirror of me. Still tall, still that grin that could melt steel. "Hey, Saul," he said. "Heard your grandson's the new pancake prodigy." "Depends," I said. "If launching batter at the ceiling counts as talent, he's a genius." He laughed, then took a long look around the diner. "Still smells the same." "Some things don't change," I said. "Coffee, love, and your bad jokes." He gave a theatrical sigh, still sharp as ever. We hugged, slow and warm, the kind that carries a lifetime. That afternoon, Maya gathered us all together. She'd planned a small surprise. When the last customer left, she dimmed the lights and played a short video on the diner's old TV. Photos and clips spanning 55 years. Dad flipping pancakes, me arguing with suppliers, Ethan and I reopening the diner, Maya as a child painting on napkins, and now Leo in his tiny apron. As the slideshow faded, a quote appeared on screen. "Home isn't a place. It's a table that never empties." The room went silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and a few quiet sniffles. Maya turned to me. "Mom, I've decided something." I raised an eyebrow. "Should I be worried?" She took a breath. "I'm expanding, opening a second diner downtown." Ethan whistled. "Ambitious. You sure?" She nodded. "I'm calling it the Archer Table, a place for people who've lost their way to find company again. Just like you taught me." Tears welled in my eyes. "Oh, sweetheart, that's beautiful." Then I smiled mischievously. "Just promise me one thing. Anything. Don't use that lavender syrup again." She laughed through her tears. "Deal." When night fell, the diner was empty except for family. The air smelled like sugar and nostalgia. I stood by the window, watching the city lights flicker beyond the glass. Ethan joined me quietly. "You ever think about how far we've come?" "All the time," I said. "But the truth is, I didn't do it alone. None of us did." He smiled. "Guess that's the point, huh? Legacy's not about ownership. It's about continuity." "Exactly," I whispered. "The table never empties. Someone always comes to sit." Later that night, after everyone left, I turned off the lights one by one. The jukebox stopped. The kitchen fell silent. Only the sign outside remained, glowing softly through the window. Still honest. Still home. I sat at my favorite booth with my coffee and looked at the empty chairs. Empty, yet somehow full. In the quiet hum of the refrigerator, I heard echoes. Dad's laughter, Ethan's voice, Maya's childhood giggle, Leo's bright little squeal. 4 generations, 1 song. The morning came with soft rain, rare for Phoenix. It fell gently against the diner windows, turning the desert dust into the scent of earth and memory. I sat at my corner booth, the same one I'd occupied for half a century. My cane leaned against the wall. My coffee steamed quietly beside a folded newspaper. Outside, the city moved slowly, hazy beneath the drizzle. Inside, the Archer family diner glowed, golden, alive, humming with the warmth of generations. The laughter wasn't mine anymore. It belonged to them, Maya, Leo, and all the souls who had found a piece of themselves at these tables. Maya was 30 now, poised, graceful, with the confidence of someone who'd carried both fire and peace. She managed 3 diners now, the original in Phoenix, the Archer Table downtown, and a new branch in Los Angeles, right next to Ethan's old Second Chance Cafe. Ethan had passed away 2 years earlier, peacefully, at home. We'd buried him beside Dad. 2 men who had built, broken, and rebuilt with love. At his funeral, Maya read from his letter. "A diner's just a building until someone fills it with heart. Saul did that for me. I just tried to keep the flame alive." That day, I realized grief and gratitude taste the same when shared over coffee. Now, Leo ran between tables, 9 years old and unstoppable. He carried a tray half his size, handing out milkshakes like medals. When a customer dropped a fork, he dove to grab it, smiling the same way his great-grandfather used to when someone said thank you. I watched him for a long moment, the edges of my heart softening. It was like looking through time. Different faces, same spirit. The rain grew heavier. Maria, now retired but still refusing to actually retire, hurried in, shaking off her umbrella. "Morning, boss," she said, kissing my cheek. "Still pretending you're not tired?" I chuckled. "If I ever stop pretending, you'll worry." "Too late. We've been worried since the 80s. Her laugh filled the room like sunlight breaking through clouds. She sat across from me. "You know, the place still feels like you, even with all the changes." "It's not me anymore," I said softly. "It's them, and that's exactly how it should be." Maria smiled. "Still humble, huh? Some things don't change." When the afternoon lull came, Maya joined me at the booth. Rain pattered gently outside. She set down 2 slices of pie, my favorite, apple with cinnamon sugar crust. "Mom," she said, her tone hesitant, "the city's offered to landmark the diner, officially make it a heritage site." I blinked. "You mean protected?" She nodded. "Forever." A slow smile spread across my face. "Dad would have said that's crazy." "And you?" she asked. I whispered, "It's beautiful." She reached for my hand. "I couldn't have done any of this without you." I squeezed back. "You did it because I stepped aside." Her eyes shimmered. "You're never really aside, Mom. You're the foundation." Evening fell. The sky outside turned lavender, the rain easing into mist. Customers trickled out one by one until only family remained. Maya dimmed the lights. Leo wiped the last table, and soft jazz played from the jukebox. Then Maya came back with something in her hands. A small wooden box. "What's this?" I asked. "Something I've been saving." She opened it. Inside lay Dad's old silver spatula, Ethan's engraved plaque, and my handwritten journal. The Diary of the Diner. I hadn't seen that book in years. Its pages were yellowed, corners bent from life. Maya said softly, "I want Leo to have it someday, but before that, I need you to add one last entry." I smiled weakly. "You sure it needs more words?" "Yes," she said. "Your story started it. It should also close it." Later that night, long after they'd gone home, I sat alone in the diner. The rain gone, the neon light flickering softly outside. I opened the journal and wrote slowly, my hands trembling just a little. Tonight, I watched my daughter carry everything I once fought to protect. Not as a burden, but as a gift. The diner no longer belongs to me. It belongs to love, to every soul that walked in broken and left whole. If anyone reads this years from now, know this. The secret ingredient was never in the recipe. It was always in the heart. I closed the book gently, placed it in the box, and looked around the diner one last time. Every booth, every stain, every laugh still lingered in the air. And then, a reflection in the window. Dad, Ethan, younger versions of myself, Maya, and Leo, all sitting together at the corner booth, smiling. I blinked, and they were gone. But the warmth remained. I stood, turned off the lights, and whispered into the empty air, "The coffee's still hot, Dad." Then I stepped outside. The rain had stopped completely, leaving puddles that mirrored the city lights. Across the glass, the neon sign glowed brighter than ever. Still honest, still home. The reflection shimmered over my face, and for a moment I felt it. Not an ending, but a passage. Because love, when passed down enough times, stops belonging to people and starts belonging to the world.